out the door to the left, and out this back entrance, you'll see a glass double door just to your right. And we'll go up the sidewalk all the way up to the grassy area just adjacent to the Justice Building. In the event of an emergency that requires us to seek shelter, we will stay right here in this room and wait for further instructions here. If there is a medical emergency, we do have first aid trained personnel with first aid kits and defibrillators on station. Mr. Rogers can call those for you. And if we have to summon outside emergency medical personnel, I'll ask everybody to please clear the way so that they can get into the room and to the person in need of help as quickly as possible. If there are no questions, then I will go ahead and turn the meeting over to Dr. Hernandez.
Okay, thank you. We'll now call the May 16, 2018 Charter Authorizing Panel meeting to order. I'd like to definitely again welcome everybody to the new remodeled auditorium. We are probably working out some bugs, so hopefully everything works today. So we're excited about that. I would like to introduce the members of the Charter Authorizing Panel. We have Dr. Ivy Pfeffer, who is the chair. She's out today, and I'll be covering the chair position today. Dr. Jeremy Owa, the Assistant Commissioner for Educator Effectiveness. I'm Dr. Mike Hernandez, State Superintendent for Office of Coordinated Support and Service. Kathy Turner, Deputy Director for Career and Technical Education at the Arkansas Department of Career Education. Mr. Mike Wilson, the Education Advocate and Attorney in Jacksonville. Dr. Nackerman Williams, former State Board of Education member from August 11, 2004 to June 30, 2011. Ms. Toyce Newton, former State Board of Education member from August 18, 2009 to June 30, 2016. As chair, my goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. I will request that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. I will ask that you continue to speak clearly into the microphone for the benefit of the panel, the audience, and the viewing audience. The entire meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Ms. Sharon Hill, the court reporter, will be providing a transcript of the meeting that will be posted on the AD website. So we will now, I do see the consent agenda. So does anybody wish to discuss any items on the consent agenda? If not, I will accept a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now move into the action agenda, and I will ask Ms. Jennifer Davis to come up and explain the hearing process and those for the items on our action agenda.
Hi, good morning. Jennifer Davis, staff attorney for the department. Can y'all hear me? Is this on? So it was on before. Do I have to get that close? So the procedures you're going to follow this morning, they will change this afternoon, but we'll go over them when we get there. The procedures for the first few items will be that any persons wishing to provide testimony to you today will need to be sworn in with the exception of attorneys. The applicant will then have 20 minutes to present its amendment request to you. If there is any opposition, they will have 20 minutes collectively to present that, followed by 5 minutes additional for the applicant. You can then ask any questions that you may have of the applicant, ADE staff, or anyone who thinks that, that may have the answer that you need. After that, you can make your decision. You do have a Google Doc that you will need to notate the reasons for your decision in there for the applicant to have. Is there any questions?
Okay, we'll take up the first item as a request for district conversion charter school amendment with Osceola STEM Academy. Ms. McLaughlin, you are recognized.
Good morning. Kelly McLaughlin, ADE Charter School Office. On January 9th, 2012, the State Board of Education approved the district conversion charter application for Osceola STEM Academy in Osceola. The charter is approved to serve students in grades 5 through 8 with the maximum enrollment of 450 students. Representatives of Osceola STEM Academy are appearing before the panel to request amendments to their current charter.
Would all representatives from the charter and anyone speaking in opposition please stand to receive the oath? you would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay. Thank you. All right, so we have some school presenters, and I guess we were starting, Ms. Davis, I lost you, so we'll start with 20 minutes of presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. We'll start with Chantel Raper, who's the Director of Federal Programs. She'll start us off for this item.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Chantel Raper. I serve as Osceola School District Director of Federal Programs and Special Projects. We do have an additional handout. Would you be willing to accept those handouts at this time?
Is this the one we already have, or
Okay.
something different?
Okay. Okay, so good morning. We're here this morning to request the Charter Authorizing Panel to approve the statute, standard, and rules to add a waiver for library media services. In all transparency, we felt like we already had this waiver. When the original charter was written in 2011, that waiver was submitted, and we had been following what was posted on the ADE website, the waivers that were posted on the ADE website. Throughout all of this time, we have had a library media specialist on board, and Ms. Smith will come in just a moment and speak to you about our unique situation where we have a discovery zone tied to our library media, so it's a unique situation. Last year, when we did lose our library media specialist, we did post the position in April of 2017, but that position was not filled. Of course, those are tough positions to fill, but our services to our students have not changed. So throughout, from 2011 to this point, we thought we had the library media specialist. We had one principal that was a part of writing the charter agreement. Then we had another principal that came in, and then we have another one. So through that, it sort of got lost in translation. So as we realized we did not have it, we had to do a little bit of searching and figure out why we did not have it. But at this point, we do want to share with you some of the things that we're doing so that perhaps you will go ahead and request our asking for this waiver for this time, okay? So I'm gonna ask Ms. Smith, I'm gonna stay up here with her, but I'm gonna ask her to come in and she's gonna go over the handout and show you some of the services that we do provide for the students.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Crystal Smith. I'm the principal of Osceola STEM Academy. This is my 4th year as the principal. As Ms. Raper stated earlier, we were under the understanding that we did have the waiver. I was just fortunate when I came in that I interviewed a teacher that had library media specialist certification as well as career. So she did both for us, which did a good job. But like Ms. Raper said before, we're still doing the same thing that we've been doing since I've been there the last 4 years, and I want to talk a little bit about it. If you look in the handbook on the first page, our library is not just a library setting, meaning books and a checkout. It also is a discovery zone. We have many books in there. We have a chess set. We have Wii set up. And in this package, there's several things I want to talk to you about. What we did was we looked at the data, and we looked at our PARC scores, and we also looked at our ACT Aspire. And we found a trend among all our 5th through 8th grade students that they were very weak in reading comprehension. So one of the things that we did, we pushed in more informational texts and nonfiction texts. I went to the superintendent because the library at this time, because it had already transitioned to be a discovery zone, did not have as many texts or books in there. So he worked with me. We put $5,000 worth of books back in there. Like I said, we was fortunate to have someone to come in that already had that. Also, how we set it up was, because I know that kids going into the library is very important. There's library standards that are very important that they need to know. Even though those library standards, a lot of them are covered in our curriculum, Also, they're covered in, we have tools for learning as well. But we feel like it was important that they be exposed and go through there. So we set up a plan or a system through our social studies classes. And in our social studies classes, what we do is they are assigned a time and a day. So they go to the library every week. They go 55 minutes, and during this time, they are able to check out books. They take AR tests. They're able to return books. So they still get the same service as if there's a library media there. Another thing that we do is we try to make sure that because we felt like text complexity was an issue, that we have some high interest texts in there as well. So they're on a rotation and they go into the library every week. Besides just that social studies, because we teach literacy skills through the social study content, they also go in that setting as a discovery zone class, what I was talking about earlier, or as a pullout. So they get an opportunity twice a week to be able to go into this discovery zone / library. Another thing that we wanted to look at was, like I said before, when I said they go to the discovery zone as well as the library, they're also in there with a certified teacher. I need to state that too. Certified and 2 pairs also in there. So they have access with 3 adults that helps them with that. Because we're a STEM school, we really try to integrate science and math and science. We also have those things also in there besides just literacy. So they're able to do, like, I'll give you an example. Just last week, I went and observed Discovery Zone, and I watched a teacher and the math teacher along with the Discovery Zone teacher collaborate, and they were working on scatter plots. We did that right before testing. We were doing, we felt like we were rushed and we didn't get to cover probability. So we made sure that we push it in. So we're pushing standards in as well through that. Because we are a STEM school, and one of the things that we try to really focus on is project-based learning. A lot of hands-on things. They get an opportunity to do that. We have the we's in there for math. You know, the kids think it's fun, but they don't realize they're learning as well with that. Another thing we have is that's really big in my school is chess. They love chess. We use chess for problem solving, critical thinking skills, just logic. We use that as another way to build math conceptual thinking. So that's another thing they get to do in there as well. Trying to think what else we do. We also have a setup in there. We have a small lab in there. That's an area that they also are allowed to take tests. And when you look at it on there, it'll look like, let me see. Oh, it's on the last page. Okay, the last page, that small lab, we use that for AR testing. Also, we implemented Read 180 this year. So also we have a Read 180 intervention group that also use that lab as well. Another thing we do in there is our library is set up with books on one side and the other side is set up kind of like a classroom. We have long desks. That's whenever the teachers, because we have teachers that are able to utilize our Discovery Zone outside of just the library period, outside of just Discovery Zone. So they come in and they travel their classes in, and they also have access to the material that's in there. So we try to integrate that in our just core classes in general. Like I said before, when I first come there, was not a lot of books. I was fortunate that the superintendent supported me, and we bought some more books so we could have more nonfiction and informational text, which was there this weekend. But if you ever get an opportunity in the business, you'll see that it's a very adventurous. Kids love it. They love going in there. They get the same opportunity as if we had a librarian. Like I said, I was fortunate, not this year, but the year before, you know, I thought I had the waiver, but I hired this lady because she had the certification as well as career certification. So it worked for me in both ways. So that's all I have at this time. If y'all have any questions.
Okay. So you have about 11 minutes left of your, do you want any other things that you would like to present, or would you just want to go ahead and move to questions?
I think we can move to questions. I think we've shared the information that we have. Just one thing to know that when we started the STEM charter, we were looking for innovative ways to get our students interested in science, math, and reading. And anyone who has ever visited our Discovery Zone understands that it's an environment that the students want to be in, and we're fortunate enough to be able to have books there to get them interested. I can tell you when we did our first kickoff, and it was before school started, we We had students knocking on the door a week before school started wanting to come to school because they had seen the Discovery Zone and wanted to be a part of it. So I think that speaks for itself, that students want to be involved in that class.
Okay. All right, before we move to questions, Ms. Boyd, is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Okay. You do have an additional 5 minutes if you'd like to share anything else, or we can go right into questions. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to questions. Are there any questions of any panel members? We can start down here with Dr. Williams.
Yes, thank you. What are you doing differently now than previously when you had a librarian, a media specialist?
Okay, we're not doing anything different with the
Okay.
exception of you just don't have a person in there that has the certification.
Okay, so there are no services that are not taking place with the kids or anything like that now?
No,
Okay,
so-
all right, thank you.
Ms. Turner? Dr. Owa?
You mentioned that the person who would be assigned to the media center would take care of AR testing and check out books, but of course we know that there's more to library education or media center education than just those areas. So my question is, how will students obtain those skills on how to really utilize the media center effectively going forward if you're granted this waiver?
Okay, when I was speaking earlier, when I said they rotate in there with the social studies teachers, social studies also teach literacy standards as well. So a lot of those library media special standards are part of our literacy standards in our curriculum. So that's where we try to make sure that we address those standards that the library.
And so we have went through the library media standards, and there is a handout in here where we just picked out just a few of the standards. We have a K-12 approach to curriculum with Engage New York. We're very fortunate in our district to have actually a pre-K to 12th grade curriculum. And so our Engage New York curriculum covers or teaches those standards in depth. For example, one of the standards, just looking at complex questions, keywords, using the dictionaries, ebooks, those type of things. And so Ms. Smith, and we wanted to make sure, and so the last few days we've looked at those standards to ensure that we are indeed making sure that those students receive those standards in not just literacy, but social studies.
Okay. And my last question, you mentioned Read 180 class. Who facilitates that intervention class?
Okay, the one that's inside of there, my counselor has a small group. We have a 6th grade literacy teacher that goes in there and does a small group. I have a 7th grade social study teacher and an 8th grade literacy teacher that does a session, Read 180.
And her counselor was a former literacy
Oh yeah,
coach.
my counselor was, yeah.
Thank you.
And it just makes for a good environment for that type of class, because we do have a small computer lab, a nice place for collaborative learning. It's just the perfect scenario classroom environment for Read 180.
Because the Read 180 is they rotate in stations, so.
Right, and I'm familiar with it, and that's the reason why I asked who would be facilitating it, and so there are multiple people
Yes.
facilitating.
What we did was we screened the kids, and on my master schedule, what I did, we had intervention there, so when we implemented that, those teachers' intervention became Read 180 with small groups.
And she chose the best of the best to work with her Read 180.
Thank you.
Ms. Newton?
I think my question is follow-up to Dr. Owu, and I understand the complexity of the system that you have set up. My concern is quality assurance, because one thing has to drop to throw the whole thing out of kilter. So in the event that your waiver is granted, how do you assure, or how do you monitor compliance at there are a lot of steps in this process, to address the lack of the media specialist there. So what's the oversight and what's the assurance of quality that the board will have that things continue to meet the requirements?
Okay, one of the things that I wanted to make sure, like I said, we have a certified person that travels, and when I set it up with time slots. So when a group do go in there, if you are going to give a lesson, whether it's on cataloging or whatever it may be, that there's no one else in there, so they get the time just with those kids. Another thing we did was we put 2 paraprofessionals in there. So if they come in there and you have Discovery Zone going on as well, activities as well as checking out books or whatever, it could be stations and you have enough adults to ensure that the quality of that as well. Is that what you?
No, no.
One thing that we could
What,
do.
the quality, the meeting the standards,
Okay, you're talking
absent
about-
the specialists, how do you assure that the system, that nothing drops
One
in
thing
the
that-
process with the different individuals connecting with each other in terms of their requirements to see that things are done?
One thing I think we could do would be to incorporate our integration when we do have integrated lesson plans. I think what we could do for that is to integrate and make sure that these standards are written into the lesson plans of that certified teacher that's working with that. I think that would be something that we could
And another thing too we could do is, because when I look at these standards and I think about our literacy standards, I can make sure they correlate and then have them document that as well and make sure when they go in there that we are meeting the standards.
Does that answer my question, Dr. Olu? You know, yeah, I saw you nodding and where I'm trying to go.
If they're ensuring that it's embedded in the lesson plans
Okay.
and the teachers who are overseeing that.
I think what we would be willing to do is to go through those standards and
Standards.
make, and do a true, correlation with our
Yes.
curriculum and see which standards, because there are standards, of course, like cataloging and those type of things that are a little bit more, specific to library media and not just literacy. And I believe,
We could do
I
that.
think that we could do that, and Ms. Smith would be willing to
I'd be willing to do
Right.
that.
ensure
Okay.
that we integrate that, because we do work with integrated lesson plans often. And so,
And-
we could make sure that we add those in.
And right now, we're in the process of looking at our curriculum and our modules, so this will be the perfect time to go in there and make sure we correlate
Okay,
that with
that
it.
answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just want to remind everybody to make sure that they get close to the microphone like me,
I'm sorry.
because we have viewing audience that's watching this also, and they're having some trouble hearing. So, all right, Mr. Wilson. Okay. I do have a couple questions. So I'm going to say a few things, and then I'll get to my question, I guess. So I think one thing that gives me some, well, I'll ask a question first. How long is the system that you have in place with the I forget the term you used, Discovery Zone? I was going to say drop zone, I don't know why, but Discovery Zone. How long has that been in place?
Since 2011.
Okay, that's helpful. So in kind of reviewing some of the data, looking at the recently put out ESSA School Index, I see that reading levels, there's a little north of 15% of kids that are reading on grade level in your school. Over the comparison from last year to the previous year, there's been a drop in ELA scores. And so my question is the optics of us saying we're granting this waiver for library media specialists. I have some concerns about the plan as far as how do you've been doing this process, and so are we making it worse by granting a waiver, or is there something that's solid in place that's going to help us think through? I guess what I'm saying, how does this waiver help you raise those scores?
Well, when I was saying earlier, where I think it helps us, like I said, I've added text to it, but also I think it's going to help us because it's something that the kids enjoy doing, meaning you got to stress the reading part of it. So they know that not only they're having fun, but I want to go back to address something. Can I go back to where you started
Yes,
looking at
ma'am.
my data? We were a little nervous at the end of last year because with our reading scores, we didn't anticipate them to be that low, but I had 2 teachers that in the grades that those grades I was worried about, that pretty much reflected what the instruction I feel was not where it needed to be. So I don't think the discovery zone of the library was impacted it in terms or made it worse for us. Now, considering this year, I feel like I'm feeling really good about our teachers. The instruction going on, we anticipate to see our reading scores go up tremendously. So I wanted to address that. But do I think that this setting will benefit us? Absolutely. We do have students that don't have a desire to read. That's the reason we went with high interest text. We do live in a area or a community where reading is not stressed, and that's a barrier we can't do anything about. So we're trying to build it up within our school, so the children take on their own initiative to want to read more. But I think this is the best setting for our kids, because a lot of times you'll see when they get in there and they really get involved with something, whether it's a reading and they're doing, because see, we do reciprocal reading in small groups, so they actually don't just sit there and read for 55 minutes. They actually have to have academic discussions in relations to what they're reading. So, but I think it benefits us tremendously.
One advantage is that our library is not in isolation, and sometimes we talk about that as silos. And so with social studies teachers going in there with them and the Discovery Zone teacher being in there, it becomes a part of the student's day and not just a class period. And that's what we try to work with our students, to make that learning process all day just a flow and not silos of math, science, reading, library.
So this is kind of probably an ancillary question, but so you guys have gone through, looked at your data, you've started to work through and think through school level plans and what that's going to look like, and started to get those to the district to think through. And so does this waiver and things, as how you're doing this, is this kind of incorporated in the plan to? And the reason why I asked that, I think about things like Dr. Owa asked about Read 180 and how all that stuff fits together. And so is this just kind of we realized, hey, we needed to get this waiver, or is it one of those things that's really part of a long-term plan to address that?
Actually is part of long-term plan. Like we said earlier, we thought we had the waiver. So, like I said, I was fortunate earlier to having a person that was certified. But this is part of my STEM school, so it's part of what we do.
And so our school improvement plan is complete with the cycle that was sent in the commissioner's memo and has already been submitted to your direction already. We made sure that was created with our district. We took a district approach to that, and so with elementary in the building with us, with middle school in the building with high school. So we took a true pre-K-12 approach to writing that school improvement plan with the plan do check. And Read 180 and all of those components were certainly written into that plan. So we're not trying to be reactive. We're just following along with what we've always done and what we think is best for students.
Mr. Chair, I had one follow-up question. I noted that you're asking for waivers for two different codes, one for the service program and one for the specialist. I'm interested to know why you're waiving the service program if some of your responses this morning have centered around that you're providing the services, and I think those services that are outlined in law are very important to all of our students, K-12. And so if you could kind of share why you're waiving both codes?
We may need Alexandra to help us on that one. These were the statute, standard, and rules that we had originally asked for in our original waiver, and so we just went ahead and our original application rather, and so we just went ahead and went through that, but at no time have we completely just stopped any of those services. So we're still going to do what's best for students, but we did go ahead and ask for the original waivers that we asked for in the original charter in 2011. But this Discovery Zone process, when we wrote that application, we were looking at it as a vision. And now this vision has progressed, and we were able to offer more services really than we thought. Do you have better? Go ahead.
I don't have anything better, I just have something additional. So the way that the statute is written, it entangles in the specialist position within the services. So that's why we advise for the schools to ask for both, because the one about the services speaks about a media specialist.
So Dr. Boyd, is it possible for the school to receive the waiver for the specialist and be waived that, but still be required? I guess in short, can we separate the two codes and vote on each one separately, because I think the services are still important for the students, and if they're waived from the specialist and fill that position or divide the services among their teachers, that still shouldn't, give them, the services still would be able to be provided, I guess is my question or concern.
Right, and what we have traditionally have always done in the past and what has been assumed and accepted by the applicants for waivers is just because they waive maybe how they are doing it does not mean that they are waiving providing it. They still have to provide services. So the reason why these two laws are usually the ones that are given for this is in the first statute, in the 103, there is language about the 1/3 of the media specialist time and how it's spent, so it's more dictated to, how that's spent. So if it's purely just a timing, then maybe they can limit it to just that particular subsection. And then on the code ending 104, dealing with the media specialist deals with having the specific license and qualifications of the specialist. But even waiving these, because they have testified here today, which would be in the transcript, that they are providing services, then they are providing services.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. So that's what I want to be assured of, that those services that are outlined in Code 103, that those services will still continue.
Absolutely,
okay.
They will. And like I say, if you would feel better at it, the applicant can just go ahead and confirm to you on the record that they will still be providing the services.
I would like that. Thank you.
So I'll answer that question because I am the instructional leader at Osceola STEM Academy. We will be.
Okay.
We'll be providing those services because we do feel like it is very important.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions or? Okay. Not seeing any other questions, we can move to decision. Our decision can be to approve, deny, or take the matter under advisement for a future meeting. So with that, I'll check with Ms. Davis. Are there any outstanding issues with this application? I'm seeing a no. And so I'm ready to accept the motion regarding the Osceola STEM Academy request.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll take a few minutes to fill in your handy dandy chart.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You didn't say that.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Mr. Williams?
I voted to approve the request, given that the media services are being provided and will continue to be provided.
Ms. Turner?
I voted for the motion. Osceola STEM Academy has assured they will continue to provide services to the students after the approval of this waiver.
Dr. Owa?
I voted to approve the request because the school has provided a plan to continue to address the standards as outlined.
Ms. Newton?
I voted for approval, and my reason is the school has a clear plan. I voted for the motion, and the reason is the school has a clear plan as to how they will meet the services required and provide adequate monitoring.
Mr. Wilson?
I voted for the waiver. I was satisfied that the discrepancy was inadvertent and they are following their original intention.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now move to our second item. It's a request for district conversion charter school amendment, Polk County Virtual Academy. Mr. McLaughlin, you are recognized.
Thank you. On October 19th, the State Board of Education approved the district conversion charter application for Polk County Virtual Academy in Mena. The charter is approved to serve students in grades K-12 with the maximum enrollment of 200 students. Representatives of Polk County Virtual Academy are appearing before the panel to request amendments to the current charter. Actually, it's Superintendent Benny Weston that is here to speak.
Okay, would all representatives from the charter and anyone speaking in opposition please stand to receive the oath? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, Mr. Weston, you are recognized for 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Benny Weston. I'm the superintendent of Mena Public Schools as well as Polk County Virtual Academy. I come before you today to request basically a change of address for our academy. After visiting, the team went and visited some other academies, and we realized that our target population was our 139, which is 142 now, homeschool folks in our community, in our county. And so where we had originally planned on putting it was kind of in the center of a campus at our high school. And after interviewing and talking with the candidates that applied for the school, we fastly realized that they really don't want to be in the center of a campus. That's one reason they're not with us any longer. And so, realizing that, we also fell into a lucky situation. Our primary is being renovated as well as 14 classes added on to it. We have modular buildings that house our preschools behind our primary building, and the construction is a little bit ahead of time, and so we found out that those modular buildings were going to be available. As a matter of fact, we're moving those the 22nd of May, and so those are already set up for educational purposes, with restrooms, with computer access, with all of the things that we feel like that we need for the academy. And so we have decided, or I should say I have decided, that it would be great to be able to move those to a location, and we have lots of property. We're going to move those to a location which we already have turned dirt on and kind of got it ready to serve as our academy, which will also allow for future expansion as the population increases. It's about 300 yards straight as a crow flies from where it was.
Anything else
That's
you'd
it.
like to present?
That's it.
Sounds short and sweet. Sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak in opposition? Okay, not seeing anything else you'd like to add?
Not unless you have questions that I can
Okay.
share with you.
We will turn to questions. Are there any questions of panel members? Okay. Don't see, I don't have any questions, Mr. Weston, so with that, I will accept a motion regarding the Polk County Virtual Academy request.
I move that we accept the amendment request.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve the request. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. If you would, fill out your charts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I voted for the motion.
Mr. Wilson?
I voted for the motion. I felt that the change of address is minimal and could be helpful in the administration of the district.
Okay. Ms. Newton?
I voted for the motion, and the reason is the request for the move is logical to accommodate homeschool students.
All right, Dr. Owa?
I voted for the amendment because it includes and accounts for stakeholder input as well as the student needs that have been stated.
Ms. Turner?
I voted for the amendment. It seems to be a logical move on behalf of the school district.
Dr. Williams?
I voted to approve the request for the change of address. The change appears to meet the needs of the students and families and the district.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for open enrollment charter school amendment, Arkansas Arts Academy Rogers. Ms. Perry, you are recognized.
Good morning, Virginia Perry, ADE Charter Unit Program Advisor. On November 13th, 2000, the State Board of Education approved the application for Arkansas Arts Academy. The charter is approved to serve students in grades K through 12 with a maximum enrollment of 1,225. Representatives of Arkansas Arts Academy are appearing before the charter authorizing panel to request an amendment to the current charter, and Superintendent Mary Lay should be on the phone.
Okay. Or do we have Ms. Lay on the phone?
We're getting her.
Okay.
Dr. Hernandez, while we're waiting on Ms. Lay, I just want to point out that I made a mistake on the agenda. So the request that's being made is the exact same as the request that was previously made by Osceola STEM Academy. So they're asking for the library media specialist. We went back and forth and they did send us the correct request. I just inadvertently posted the original request, so that's the mistake.
So it should be the same codes that they're same rules and code that they're asking.
Exactly,
Okay.
and I'm looking for the corrected one, and when I get it, I'll email it to you. I
Okay.
apologize for that.
Ms. Lay? Yes. This is Doug at the Department of Education. You are on the call.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hernandez?
Okay, so all representatives from the charter, anyone speaking in opposition, please stand to receive the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Ms. Lay, were you able to hear that?
Yes,
Did you hear the oath?
yes,
Are you confirming that oath?
yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we will now begin. Ms. Lay, you have 20 minutes to present your request.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Ms. Lay, you have 20 minutes to present your request.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me not drive there and be able to do this on the phone.
Ms. Lay, is there, do you want to give us
Thank
some
you.
detail about, oh, go ahead.
So we've had a wonderful reading specialist that was a third grade teacher for a long time take over our media center at the K-8 that will be the K-6 next year. She's done a tremendous job. She's a great reading specialist. We also have a computer tech that works with her. And then when we went to get our, when they go through our accountability every year, this year Lawrence Randall said that he didn't think that she
Ms. Lay, you're breaking up.
I'm here.
Could you repeat that last statement?
So anyway, anyway, when we went to get our certification through Randall Lawrence this year, he didn't feel like that our waiver, even though they had approved it the last 2 years, needed to be more specific. So that's why this year we're asking for her, it be waived that a reading teacher could be also serving the library position.
Okay, so generally you're requesting that your reading teacher be allowed to also serve as the library media specialist. Is that correct?
Ms. Lake, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
So Dr. Hernandez wanted to know, so your request is to use your reading specialist as your library media specialist?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody here to speak in opposition?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Lay, before we move into questions, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, sir.
Thank you. All right, we will now take panel member questions. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
I just want to, I'm not quite sure I'm tracking here. Did you lose your media specialist, or the media specialist still there and they need a different waiver for that? Is there a different person here? Okay.
Dr. Williams, I think I can
Well,
help.
our scores have gone up.
Ms. Lay, let's go ahead and let Ms. Boyd try to address that.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So just in general, for context for the entire panel, this might happen frequently in the meetings to come. Recently, we have put all of the waivers in one place. And that's a new, tremendous, wonderful thing for us. They're all on My School Info. So before, where schools were piecing together different documents to show the standards assurance team that they were meeting the standards, now it's all in one place, and this is what you have waivers of, and this is how it affects your standards of accreditation. So in past, just like with Osceola STEM and now with Arkansas Arts, they had been piecing together different pieces of documentation and showing to the standards team, oh, I have a waiver of this because of this document and that document. And none of it was malicious, or there was no ill intent. It's just, that's what the understanding was, but it wasn't correct. So now that we have all of the waivers in one place on My School Info, it's helping the standards assurance team to be more efficient and more effective. And so, unfortunately, this may not be the last meeting where you see schools come before you and say, I thought that we were covered by this waiver, but we're not. Another point is that they're all in one place and they're all spelled out. So I believe in this case, Arkansas Arts believes, since they had a waiver from teacher licensure, that covered the media specialist. But as we know earlier, we looked at the laws, and the media specialist has their own specific law that's outside of the laws covered under teacher licensure waivers. So I think that might be helpful to you. Do you have any questions for me about that?
No, that's very helpful. I just wasn't tracking the way it was described. The fact that I understood they already had someone in place, and now all of a sudden we need to have an amendment or a waiver for that. So they hadn't changed individuals per se. It's just that they thought they had the waiver and they do not have the waiver.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Ms. Turner?
Ms. Lay, will all the services that you've been offering students continue?
Hey, Ms. Lane, Ms. Turner has a question. All the services that you previously provided, will they continue? Ms. Lay, are you there? Hello?
Yes. Oh, of course, and even more so.
Thank you.
Dr. Owa? Ms. Newton, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Wilson? Okay. All right, I do not have any questions. Okay, so we have the option here, so I will accept a motion, or maybe make sure, Ms. Davis, is there anything else we need to consider on this? No. Do we need to, we're approving the waiver request, not as presented in the, okay, oh, Ms. Newton does have questions.
My question is, Dr. Boyd, since we're not able to effectively communicate over the phone, do you have any concerns about the approval of this waiver, or?
I don't have any concerns. Looking at the school's performance in reading, they've been steadily improving, so it's not a concern for me.
And just for clarification, what I have as this waiver would be the exact waiver that Osceola just had, a waiver of 625, 103, and 104, and then the standard 16.02.3. So that's what I have as, would be this waiver if granted.
Okay, so that's what we're approving.
Yes.
If we, okay. All right, so with that, I'll accept the motion.
So move.
Second.
Is that a motion to approve, Dr. Williams?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to approve and a second. I haven't said this earlier, but any discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll give you a minute to fill out your Google document. Okay, we'll start down here with Dr. Williams.
I approve the request, given that the services were provided and will continue to be provided. Also, there were no concerns raised by ADE.
Ms. Turner?
I voted for the motion. The amendment provides clarity on the issue of the media specialist for the school, and services will be continued.
Dr. Owal?
I voted for the amendment request because services will be provided and it corrects an oversight that was in place.
Ms. Newton?
I voted for the motion with the reason being the present structure will continue to address student needs.
Mr. Wilson?
I voted for the motion. I felt that the discrepancy was inadvertent and the services were being provided to the kids.
Okay. Looks like we're ready for the next item. Need a break or anything? We're good? Press on? Okay. All right, next item I have on the agenda is request for open enrollment charter school, Friendship Aspire Academy, Little Rock. Ms. Perry, you are recognized.
On August 17th, 2017, the Charter Authorizing Panel approved the application for Friendship Aspire Academy, Little Rock. The charter is approved to serve students in grades K through 5 with a maximum enrollment of 480. Representatives of Friendship Aspire Academy Little Rock are appearing before the Charter Authorizing Panel to request an amendment to the current charter. Present today for Friendship Academy Little Rock, or Friendship Aspire Academy Little Rock, are Joe Harris, Executive Director, Fong Tran, School Leader of Arkansas, Dr. Jeffrey Grant, National Head of Schools, and Lee Chafin, Facilities Manager.
Okay, would all representatives representing the charter or anyone speak in opposition please stand to receive the oath? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, all right. Recognize you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, and good morning for seeing us. My name is Joe Harris. I'm representing the Friendship Aspire Academy Little Rock. We're here today to seek an amendment to our application that was approved in August 2017 to open up a K-5 school in Little Rock. At the time of our original charter, we sought the approval of two schools, to open two schools, the first being in Pine Bluff in school year 2018-19, and the second charter was granted for us to open a second school in Little Rock in school year 19-20. We're here today because the opportunity has presented itself for us to open our school in Little Rock a year earlier. We are seeking an amendment to open that school here in Little Rock in the school year of 18-19, as well as seek authorization to relocate our school that was originally cited in our application of the former Taekwondo facility to now the Garland Elementary School, which is located at 3615 West 25th Street. Both schools are in the same catchment area. Before I get into the nuts and bolts of our presentation or request for amendment, I'd like to introduce you to my team. I have Fong Tran. Fong Tran is our Arkansas school leader. I have Lee Chafin, who is our facilities project manager, and I have Dr. Jeffrey Grant, who will be representing all things related to our educational program. Our request to amend our charter and open our school in Little Rock earlier comes as a direct result as what is widely known that another school that was approved during the same time, Einstein Public Charter School, made a decision not to open up its Garland School in 2018. It is our desire to step in and fill that gap and open up a charter school that would mirror with respect to enrollment in the first year. Einstein's charter was approved to open a K-3 in year one. Ours is seeking to open a K-1 in this August. We believe we have the wherewithal, the capacity, the experience, and the community support to open our school a year earlier. We've, as an example of our community support, we've gotten over 61 parents to sign a petition, and they represent over 105 kids to support us opening up our school early. As you all know, we are already opening a school in Pine Bluff this fall, and we have the mechanisms in place for a successful startup in Little Rock. We will essentially be duplicating our efforts in many regards to open our school in Little Rock. We have a team, an academic team in place. We've identified our school leader for Little Rock. We've begun our student recruitment as well as our staff recruitment, and that's as a result of duplicating our efforts in Pine Bluff. So we believe that we have addressed the major concerns with respect to startup. When we originally applied for our application to open our school in Little Rock, we did so and we asked for a waiver to wait additional year because we knew the largest issue for us would be facility. At this time, we've identified a facility and we believe that issue to open a school in Little Rock has been addressed with the Garland School. The Garland School, if many of you are aware, was cited as the location for the Einstein School. Renovation is underway. The school will be delivered July 16th, ready for a turnkey. And so we have entered into, we'll finalize our lease agreement with the Walton Family Foundation to assume the lease agreement and under the terms that were accepted by this body for the Einstein School will now be shared or presented, allowed to Friendship from Walton. So we have our facility in place. It's going to be ready to open this August, and we believe that it would be a travesty if that school went vacant for another year and that kids did not have an opportunity to start their education early. We're talking about an impact of over 160 kids who, if we do not open the school year, open this school year, will go without a K-1 education.
Still have almost 15 minutes left. Is there anything else you would like to present?
Well, I'd like Dr. Grant to really kind of talk about the impact and the surrounding school options for our kids.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Jeffrey Grant, National Head of Schools for the Friendship Education Foundation. We're bringing a program that has proven successful for over 5,000 children in Washington, D.C., Louisiana, Baltimore. We are in the toughest, roughest neighborhoods. That's where we choose to be. And looking at the demographics of the neighborhood that we're serving, right now those students are being served by Stevens Elementary School, which is ranked 459th out of 484 elementary schools in Arkansas. It's a travesty that less than 5 miles away, you have Forest Park Elementary School, where those students are, that school has a number 10 ranking. So we feel that we bring our program, which is very strong. You're looking at thematic planning, teaching across the curriculum, strong academic support in an extended school day setting, as well as extended school year. But it's not just limited to the students in that neighborhood. Because it's a charter school, we are going to provide transportation for children and families who desire to get a strong program that is actually academically supported with a strong textbook series, Great Minds, Eureka, Wit and Wisdom, Fall Science, as well as guided reading under Fontes and Pinnell, things that have proven successful. I've led a school that was the lowest performing school in the Friendship Network when I took it over 5 years ago, and is now the top ranked Friendship school. It has a #1 tier ranking in the DC charter school system. I've turned around 4 schools, and I'm going to ensure that the leadership and staff turn around the school and implement an academic program that exposes children relentlessly, gives them strong writing skills, because #1, writing is very important, and we see that that is one of the standards in the Arkansas system, bringing the Collins writing program. And we're going to teach them across the curriculum and incorporate field experiences so that they can be strong advocates for the community. What we don't want to do is actually repeat what I've noticed is that, especially with the Stevens, they say the students in that community come in below grade level when they enter those doors. Now, they said under the Stevens academic program, when I was looking at some of the reviews, that the students are making yearly growth, but when you come in below grade level, that means you're going to leave below grade level. You need a school that's going to guarantee 1.5 to 2 years growth, and that's something that Friendship's model has been designed to do. We use the NWEA MAP assessment, and we're also going to make sure that we are very strong on the ACT standardized assessment at the end of the year. We're going to make sure that we use that data to plan appropriately and accordingly, collaborate with families, collaborate with the community to see what is needed, because we're not just going to come in and bring a cookie cutter program. We actually engage our families and parents and communities and design a program where we deliver students who are going to contribute to the community in an ethical, moral way.
As a result of this opportunity and hearing that Einstein would not open its school this fall, Friendship and Einstein had a number of discussions about how we can ensure that the kids in the community do not go without a quality education and charter choice. As a result of that, we put in place a partnership which reflects the bridge between what was planned for Einstein and what Friendship has intended for its school. Many of you may have heard or know of Phong Tran. Phong was hired as our Arkansas school leader. Tran was the architect and the leader of the Einstein application here in Arkansas. Tran has assumed a role to help us ensure that the school is opening. And if you would, Tran, if you want to add anything to.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. Pretty much, we have everything in place, so it's not
Mr. Tran, can you state your name for the record?
Sorry. Name is Phong Tran, school leader for Friendship in Arkansas. Like I was saying, so everything that we have in place is still continuing. It's not like we've stopped and restarted. So in working with Friendship and in working with the Walton Foundation, all the work that we've done in the last year is still progressing, but now on the friendship side. So like Mr. Harris said, it's not like we're starting from the beginning again. We're actually continuing on from what I did the last year. Okay, thank you.
And I'd like you guys to hear from Lee Chafin. Lee is overseeing and serving as a project manager, supporting the renovation and ensuring that our school in Little Rock is ready for our kids on the first day of school. Part of our decision and our request when we were originally approved was that at the time, the facility that we had selected would require an extensive amount of renovation to convert it to a charter school. Since that time, there's been a law that has allowed for any closed or unused schools for charters to have the first choice. That opportunity wasn't available to us at the time of our charter. Since then, our second choice at the time was the Garland facility. So we had done an assessment prior to submitting our application, and we believe that the facility itself is more than adequate to support our educational model and our K-5. If you would, I'd like to just turn the mic to Mr. Chafin to talk about where we are in the renovations.
My name is Lee Chafin. I'm the facility project manager for Friendship Education Foundation. We love the Garland School because it actually is a turnkey process. It fits in the same model as all of the Friendship schools in all the different areas that we are currently within Washington, D.C., within Louisiana as well, in Baltimore. Within Friendship, we really focus on making sure that all of our facilities are state-of-the-art. We make sure that the facilities do not provide any disruptions. We also, which the Garland School presents, is we love to give our instructors flexibility because we know each teacher has a different way in which they instruct. So when we design classrooms with instructional spaces, when we put in furniture, when we put in technology, we want to make sure that that teacher or that instructor is 100% comfortable in the way that they need to deliver the message to the kids. And so the Garland facility, this picture up there, back there, it provides over about 20 instructional classrooms. We have dedicated science labs, computer labs, as well as a media library. We have cafeteria. We have a lot of space. One of the things in the Friendship model is that all of our schools are immersed into community. And so we also provide what we call parent centers, where parents and guardians, they can come into school and they can have one-on-one meetings with instructors or leaders. They can utilize some of our internet service if they need to apply for applications for jobs, because some of our community does not have that at home. So that's one of the things that we do, is that we look at this facility as a great opportunity because it is turnkey, and all the stuff that Tran has done for Einstein fits into the model as far as everything that Friendship does nationwide.
Just to kind of wrap up our presentation here today, we had talked about, or at least I had indicated, that we have experience in doing startup schools across the country. In Arkansas, we are currently underway with opening our school in Pine Bluff. So it won't be a real heavy lift for us to open up a school here in Little Rock. We will essentially be duplicating our efforts that we have underway in Pine Bluff that include identifying and hiring staff, recruiting students, facilities and renovations, and also conducting all of the activities necessary to open up a successful school in August. That concludes our presentation.
Okay, thank you. You'll have 5 additional minutes. Before that, do we have anybody here to speak in opposition? Mr. Poore, I know you weren't here when we did the oath, but if you'll stand and raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you are recognized. You have 20 minutes.
Gentlemen, if you guys want to, you could sit down, or if you'd like to join me, we could get a little closer, but
Seems a little awkward to have you around behind me. The friendship group, and you know, we were aware that obviously that the charter was going to come into play next year, and so I want to focus my remarks just a little bit on the change. I think, you know, we've got to first look at the fact that one of the things that has been set up historically is that there's a timing piece to charter expansion and charter applications. And I know that the commissioner's already waived that, and that may be a moot point, but I'm still going to make it. And the reason is that when you start to think about these things, there is a timing piece to this, and that's why it was established a long time ago to have the review take place in February and October in terms of the typical way that business is done. And that's for a couple key reasons, and it affects then this current application. One is in staffing, and I know that they're making a claim right now to say we're already underway under staffing in Pine Bluff, and now we just can go roll that out right into Little Rock. Obviously, we have a teacher shortage within the state, and the number of folks that are available that are high quality for any of our schools is a challenge, and I appreciate what the Department of Ed is doing to try to tackle that. The second piece is in recruiting, and I know that they mentioned that they have a number of folks that have signed up to say that they want to be a part of it. But you know, if you think back to when we went through this whole process in the fall, one of the things that there were public meetings that were held for citizens to say that they, you know, learn about what the model is going to be. Obviously, they did the public model before, but it was geared towards the Southwest community. And then the final thing in terms of the sequence and pacing of things is that, you know, when you have the charter expansion, if it is going to happen, it allows LRSD to also respond kind of an appropriate way when we know that things are going to take place. So this last minute, if you will, in May becomes, in my mind, a little bit more problematic for districts such as Little Rock to handle. If you go back into the fall when Friendship's application was brought forward, there were several things that I want to bring up that were things that were identified. One was their passion to go serve the students of Southwest Little Rock. That was said in front of all of you and then said in front of the state board, that was their intent. And in that particular setting, they talked about the need to go help Watson Elementary, and said that was where they wanted to go. The second thing that I believe was stated in those proceedings was that they wanted to first establish their program, their approach in Pine Bluff, and have that 1 year underway, then come to Little Rock the second year. Now that's changed, and I think the main driver is the facility, and I think they stated that. But the reality was that they themselves, as a management group, said that they would like to have a start in Pine Bluff and then make the logical progression towards Little Rock. We should learn something from the failed approach of Einstein. The failed approach of Einstein was that they did not have the financial backing and support, and so deep reviews related to charter applications should be done. And in this case, the intent to have even a 35-day review hasn't even occurred, and there was an attempt to try to have all of you review this on April 26th. So, you know, the push and aggressiveness, it doesn't lend itself to, one, your own thorough review, second, a thorough review or community involvement to take place. Several things that they mentioned in their presentation. I will tell you and say directly to you is that I take offense that saying 160 students will not be served in the Little Rock community. Now, I say that in a couple different ways, and I can provide the data for you again if necessary, but remember that this section of the city has lost students. So the first fact is, demographically, from 2000 until 2016, when we did our study, that particular area of the city has lost 45% of its school-aged children. When you say school-aged children, we're talking about students that could go to a charter school, students that could go to a private school, students that could be homeschooled, and students that could choose the Little Rock School District as its option. There are 45% less students in that region. That started in 2000. A lot of people say that that's all because of charters. That's really not true. That's because people have made choices and options to move away from the city. But we have 45% less students to serve in that region. The other thing with 160 students and saying they're not going to be served is that I think it discounts a little bit of, you know, what is going on at Stevens Elementary. And I want to come back to that in just a second. When you choose to serve the toughest kids, I admire that. And that was their passion to bring forward about serving the Southwest community, and now want to go choose the toughest students, and that's what Einstein had said in there. So I appreciate that that's what they want to do, that's their intent. One other thing that I want to throw out is the fact that I believe it was asked by your own group, have you tried to collaborate with the district? That was asked in the hearings in the fall, it was asked by the state board. And the reality is that there has been no collaboration extended towards us. Now, I will share that the Little Rock School District has worked on our own efforts to collaborate with charter and private schools. For example, Bright Futures program that helps and supports the neediest kids in terms of helping any individual, any young person that has a need that's kind of developed away from the school and out in the community. Maybe it's a child that doesn't have a bed. Maybe it's a student that doesn't have appropriate clothing. We have worked with all stakeholders to say that anyone can access Bright Futures. That's a partnership between Goodwill and the City of Little Rock and the Little Rock School District. Valerie Tatum, a charter person from Covenant Keepers, serves on that board. So our interest and intent on partnering with anyone, we're willing to do that, but that has not happened with this particular group. I also would like to remind everyone that the law on charters, in terms of charters having access to buildings that are unused, that actually shouldn't be a valid argument within this particular group, because that law was passed last year when everything was coming into play in terms of their application. So that law was passed last spring. Any unused property that our district had, or any district in the state, everyone knew that that was coming and would be able to be potentially used as a vehicle to find land. It had nothing to do with their application impacted in terms of decisions in the fall. It simply was that there wasn't unused property in Little Rock at the time. Next, I would ask you to look a little bit at their application in terms of the 20 classrooms. If you have 20 classrooms, which is what I just heard, and I could not find that in the application this time, and if you look at the board packet, as I did, and you obviously have spent time, that application is not nearly as complete as what the application was in the fall for all the charters that applied for you. So, you know, there was a greater detail about the approach and everything, and I think that should be something that should have happened in this case. But go back to the 20 classrooms, just do simple math on that. And maybe they're going to request waivers for the class size. But if you take the Arkansas standard of delivery for kindergarten, first grade classrooms, fourth grade classrooms, then all of a sudden you run into a space issue at that school. But then that kind of goes to my point. They could be getting a waiver, but that's not in front of you. Those things that they may be seeking as a waiver, yet it would have been as a part of the application that occurred in the fall. So in some ways, it seems like we're pushing quickly to engineer a solution to fit the Grayson building, which, you know, could happen in the fall of next year to someone applying for that. But it seems like we're trying to very aggressively move forward this year on, in my eyes, a little bit of an incomplete application. Next, I want to talk about us, the Little Rock School District. So, you know, one of the things that I most admire about the new ESSA system is the ability to look at growth, because I think that that is a key thing, and I appreciate them bringing up the fact that, you know, really what you need is to have more than a year's worth of growth at a school. So you look at the metrics for Stevens and the metrics that are now part of the ESSA system. Little Rock School District with Stevens Elementary does not come out as favorably on that particular metric. Our highest growth pattern was for the white cohorts of students, and then the next group that had the best scores was within African American and Hispanic students. But their numbers, just being real with all of you, was less than a year's worth of growth. So when I talk to you about Little Rock, I don't want to pull any wool over your eyes, because there is work yet to be done. But let me give you one other statistic that's also relevant. When the results came out in August of last year, one of the things that I asked for the district was to have a study done by the University of Arkansas in the Office of OEP. So the Office of OEP did a study, and what it was just a little bit different way to look at growth, which in some ways you could argue might even be a better model for looking at growth, because it looked at free and reduced lunch population, and it said that within a free and reduced lunch population, it creates kind of an even playing field for all schools to say, did they meet or exceed their expected growth based on free and reduced lunch? Now, in that particular delivery, Stevens Elementary came out in a much better situation in terms of overall scores. There are 456 elementary schools that were a part of that study. And if you look at that, Stevens had a third grade reading scores at 120 out of 456 elementary schools in terms of meeting or exceeding its expected growth. You go to their math and writing, they're basically right around the 200th mark on that. You go into 4th and 5th grade group, their expected growth fell in the 200 to 400 range. But it does not go into the number that was shared earlier that was statistically correct that they provided in terms of the new ESSA standard of saying we were at 450, whatever the number was that they provided. That, their number's correct. But I just want you to understand that there's multiple ways that you can look at data, and one of the ways to look at it is saying, did we meet or exceed expected growth? Overall, the district was one of only 3 school districts in the state, one of 3 in the entire state that met or exceeded its expected growth. So, you know, some of the painting of Little Rock School District and Stevens High should be looked at with a different lens, using these different metrics that I can certainly provide you if that would be of help. And I don't know if it's, one more last thing for us. In terms of collaboration, I hope that someday you get to come visit Stevens. I think several of you have. Stevens Elementary is one of the most collaborative school environments that we have in terms of an elementary school. The students run their own bank in conjunction with First Security Bank. They run the bank. Now, how do they get bank, so to speak? How do they get the coin, the dollar bills? By doing the right things within the school environment. So it's everything from getting the homework done to helping another person in classroom with their study, to being a good citizen, to doing things that are positive towards a teacher, a variety of different ways. They actually get dollars, fake coins, that they then get to go deposit in the bank. The bank then produces a credit card for them, and they actually get to kind of load up on that credit card. The credit card then gets to go get used in the school to do haircuts, get your nails done. Guess who's doing that? Business partners and community members coming in to support the school. They get to go to a game room. They get to go do extra physical activity. They get to go do movies. And those are all things that are being engineered within the Stevens community. Faith-based community is heavily involved in this school. And you know, when Stevens takes a punch, I want to make sure that I'm able to provide some other information for you to consider as you look at in that region of what's going on in terms of operation. So my request is, one, I hope that you do ask some follow-up questions of the Friendship Group on some of the points that I made related to waivers, as well as the number of students that will be served within the confines of that building. Obviously, starting at 160 doesn't create the initial problem, but it does ultimately, unless waivers are a part of the solution. And I don't know if it's whether, I forgot
what the mechanism is, whether I answer questions or just go sit down.
So we will, we'll have 5 minutes for them to answer back, and then we'll get into questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Representatives of Friendship, you have 5 minutes to close your presentation.
All right. I'd like to thank Superintendent Poore for providing us with a vision of what the Little Rock School District plans are for the Southwest neighborhood. A lot of what he indicated today was our first time hearing that there are actual plans. It is our belief that when there's a fire, you don't say to that person that's in the window trying to get out that we'll come back and help you next year. It is incumbent upon this body, the residents, and the community to really support education in that neighborhood. Superintendent Poore talked about the surrounding schools. Well, the Stevens School that he referenced is a F-ranked school. Baseline is a D-ranked school, and Bale School is an F school. These are all schools that are in the Little Rock School District within the immediate catchment area. So there is a obvious need for quality education and quality for choice for parents. There has been an obvious decline in the number of students, but it's not due to the fact that there are, it's due to the fact of limited choices of quality schools in the neighborhood. And we're offering that opportunity and that choice. We've said before that, you know, we have the capacity, we have the wherewithal, and we have the resources to make this happen. We put in place all of the mechanisms as best we can to ensure success. And as we talk about, you know, building a partnership with the Little Rock School District, we still stand true to what we originally said in our application, is that we would reach out to the Little Rock School District, and we have. We notified them of our intent to seek this amendment. We got a one-word response back from Superintendent Poore that said thanks. Not how can we work together, not how can we fill those kindergarten slots that are so widely needed in the city. So we've taken it upon ourselves to really be not just a partner to the Little Rock School District, but also a partner to the community, where we hold our truest and best evidence of support. So we'd like to, as we wrap up our kind of rebuttal, just give this body some things to really think about. The expectations of the for the schools in those neighborhoods are not high, and growth does not mean proficiency. So when we hear numbers and we talk about reading growth in the 3rd grade, that does not speak to proficiency. And we have evidence of a school education system that is failing the kids in the neighborhood where we intend to serve. So we would like, as our, not just for this body to consider our amendment request to start early and move into the Garland School, but to also consider the impact and what it will mean for the parents and the kids in the Southwest community.
Okay, are you closed for yours?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we will now move over to panel questions, and we'll start over here with Mr. Wilson.
What's the single most important thing you can think of that would help Friendship collaborate with the Little Rock School District?
Sure, and it's not just a collaboration and partner with the Little Rock School District for Friendship, it's also with all of the charter schools that are there. There are some examples. We've had conversations with Covenant Keeper about their partnership, but in most cases it really appears to be very competitive. At the end of the day, this is about our kids. We all have a singular mission, and that is to educate our kids, whether they're district schools or they are open enrollment public charter schools, which, by the way, both of us use the explanation or the definition of our kids or our schools as public schools. We have the same mission. We are open to all. And a true partnership is about sitting down at the table and really talking about how we can improve education for our kids across the board.
You can be staunch competitors, but a friendly competition if the kids are kept in mind, and I appreciate that as to your school and as to what Mr. Poore had to say.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Newton?
I think certainly that it can't, your plans for opening the school in another year can't go unnoticed. So, given that that was your plan and your strategy, I'd like for you to discuss directly with us what you anticipate your challenges to be. So clearly there are some major challenges and hurdles. So I'd like to at least have it as a part of the record and a part of the conversation, what is inevitably things that will come up that will give us pause for consideration of this request, but also to be a way to realistically or honestly communicate with the board and the citizens and the students and families what could possibly happen as a result of pushing this forward. You know, that's, you asked for a year, and clearly that was something that fit your plan. So what, I get your rationale about the needing the school because that had been planned. But at the same time, I want you to talk with us honestly,
Sure.
And clearly about what you anticipate based on your experience and based on just the what could happen, what likely will happen, so it will not be a surprise if this this is approved. And you know, it could be headlines or it could be something that you could proactively discuss.
Sure. Well, if I could just broadly say, it's being in education. You know, it's not a simple thing of opening up a school. There are many challenges that face an organization trying to do a new startup school. Friendship has over 21 years experience in starting and operating schools across the country. We've built schools from the ground up. We've renovated former Safeway. We've taken over and occupied closed or abandoned charter schools. So the facility itself, having the wherewithal and experience to get a school building up and running, is part of something that we have experience doing. We have a number of significant partners that are supporting our efforts, not just around facility, but also addressing many of the challenges, one of which is the Walton Family Foundation, as well as APSRC, helping us with some of our financial operations and planning of our schools. Without a doubt, some of the obvious challenges are some of the challenges that we would normally face in opening a school, but we also see evidence of it in opening our schools in Pine Bluff. One of which is staffing. We've addressed those challenges by hiring the school leader as one of our top positions. We've identified a school leader in Pine Bluff, as well as we've identified and hired a school leader in Little Rock. Second has to do with staffing itself. We've already have our staff, it's both instructional and non-instructional staff recruitment underway. We have interviewed, done the initial screening of over 25 instructional staff. We've interviewed 10, and we've made a decision to hire 8 instructional staff. So we believe we have the staff, highly qualified staff, that would support the startup of the school, both in Pine Bluff and Little Rock. And again, the largest challenge that we thought we would be facing when we originally submitted our application was around facilities. And having the Garland School available to us will address that immediate concern. The facility itself is going to be a great facility, state-of-the-art. Einstein, whose application was approved, and that facility was approved for them. There's not been a disruption in the renovation and planning and opening of that school, so we're very confident that the challenge of facilities will be addressed. There is an intangible challenge, which is starting a school in the community and garnering community support. In our original application, and we believe that one of the reasons why this body approved a Friendship School coming was because of the evidence and the description of our community school model in our program. We're not just creating a school building, we're creating a community center that will be open and offer before and after school services, as well as Saturday activities. All of our school buildings are community resource, and the Garland School will be nothing less than that, where we have opportunities for seniors, the community, to have activities there, as well as it'll be open to high school students for SAT prep, as well as a whole host of community stakeholder events. We see ourselves as a real partnership. And I think many of you know what the Southwest neighborhood where we plan to open our school, what it looks like. There is urban blight. There's a lot of really pull out of homes. We spoke yesterday with the woman from HUD, and she talked about our new safe housing initiative. She has planned for that particular neighborhood where we're located in Garland to do an initiative to create safe housing. That's an example of how we see ourselves as a community partner. A school is not just a school, it is also an anchor in the community. Waiting another year means that there's continued urban blight. It means a school facility will go unused. And again, I say this again, it means that our kids will go without a quality education for another 12 months. These are kids that already, when they come to school on the first day of school, for example, come to us with, on average, a 500-word vocabulary, where on the other side, individuals that or kids that come to more affluent neighborhoods come with a vocabulary of anywhere from 12 to 1,500 words. That already puts our kids behind the 8 ball. So the longer we wait, the further our kids get behind.
Generally, I understand that answer. Going back to the worst case scenario for your plan in implementing the school, getting started, what do you, is it staff? Is it, you know, what the facility, what is the worst case scenario that could develop? And I see this as a process of getting started, you know, things like who will make financial decisions about things that need to be decided on the spot. So that will that come from the corporate office? Will that be done locally? How, since you're not here yet, how will that be handled in this rush to get started?
Okay. Well, our biggest fear is that we don't have the 160 kids on the first day of school. We're addressing that by putting a full force, what we're calling a guerrilla team, student recruitment guerrilla team in place that's going to go door to door, knock on doors in our immediate catchment area, talk to parents, meet parents where they are, both in the community and in their homes, to really kind of do a solid recruitment effort. That for us is our biggest nightmare. We have experience in doing all of the logistics stuff, proper financial management of our school, and ensuring that we have the quality school and the education in place. So our biggest fear is not on our ability to open a school, but it really is about ensuring that parents have the confidence to enroll their kids in our school. And as I indicated, we have evidence of the community support and wishes to have a school open this year.
So the fiscal and financial management will be local?
Yes, and we've, the Friendship Education Foundation, the CMO, has put in place a local team that is here and responsive to the needs of the local community, both in Pine Bluff and in Little Rock.
I'm going to jump in front of you, Dr. Owa, if that's okay. Just a follow-up question, kind of a similar question, but probably to a different person. I know that we have Mr. Tran listed as the leader for Arkansas, so I'd just kind of like to hear from Mr. Tran. Is you're going to be the guy here in Arkansas, so you know, kind of same question: what keeps you up at night, and what are some of the things that you see as challenges?
Sure. You know, everything keeps me up at night because at the end of the day, it's trying to get a quality education to kids. You know, you're looking at kids in underserved communities, right? Kids who don't have the opportunity to go to a great school. Kids sometimes don't even have the opportunity to go and eat and enjoy activities. So everything that's happening in that community is keeping me up at night because, like I said, I've been doing this, like getting this school ready for the last year. And it wasn't because of any financial issues that my former organization pulled out, okay? It was all political, and again, I'm not gonna mention that here, but you know, at the end of the day, just like what Mr. Harris said, it's getting those kids that come into the school. At this moment in time, if we don't allow, if you all don't allow us to open up or start now, then that time shortens every day, okay? And so that doesn't give us the ability to do what we need to do to go out there and enroll those kids. get those families in. Because at the end of the day, like I said, and you know, I think everyone here agrees with Friendship, their model, and like what Dr. Grant said, 3 Tier 1 schools in DC, okay? Another 3 Tier 2 schools in DC, okay? And their approach to curriculum, thematic planning, Reggio model, you know, everything that they're doing is gonna go and make that neighborhood a much better neighborhood, okay? And like I said, I don't think there's one solid thing that I can say, you know, it's as an educator, as a professional, I've been doing this for the last 12 years. Everything keeps me up at night. You never know what could happen, because at the end of the day, you know, the morning is great, right? But then in that afternoon, something happens, and then that just turns your day around. But again, you know, to your question, the nightmare, and I'm not saying that's a nightmare, it's more of a concern, is getting the students in the school, because I can't go out there and my team can't go out there and say, hey, we have a school here. Come and enroll in our school. We have a great curriculum. We have great staff. We have great principals. We have great teachers. We have great paraprofessionals. You know, so on and so forth. We can't do that until you all say, hey, yes, go ahead and do that. Because if we go out there and do that now and make that promise to those families, and then all of a sudden you guys say, no, you know, we're not gonna let you do that, how are we gonna face our parents? How are we gonna face the community and saying, hey, you know, the panel said no, you're gonna have to wait for another year. That's 12 months of quality education that you could have had, okay? And that is my main concern, okay? And as a school leader of Arkansas, I will be in Arkansas, so, you know, just a tidbit, you know, I asked my wife, I said, hey, what you wanna do? She says, please move to Arkansas. I'm willing to take my 11-month-old boy, right, and my 7-year-old daughter from Louisiana, and we're moving up here. I found a house already. So I will be based here. I will be at this school, okay, making sure and ensuring that everything that the Friendship model is and what it does will be implemented with fidelity. And that's the key word, with fidelity. You know, at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. Okay, so you'll be seeing a lot of me here. So it's not like I'll be operating down in Louisiana, New Orleans, or anything like that. I'm actually moving here. And that's the only way that's gonna work. Having that leader on the ground, doing that hard work. And my philosophy is, if I don't do it, then I'm not gonna get my people to do it. That's it.
I hate to monopolize, but Mr. Tran, I just have to respond. I don't think you can put the onus on us for Friendship not getting their school up and getting started. That's first of all. So I think that's something that's totally outside of our control and without our influence. So that whether we make a decision in favor of what your request is or not, we don't have the responsibility to hold up the fact that the deal didn't come through because of what you mentioned as politics. And just one other thing, I had a question to put in context for us, and Mr. Poore could answer this also at his opportunity. How does recruitment happen, in a sense? We have a community that clearly is suffering from different negative factors as it relates to community, possibly as it relates to education, as it relates to parent involvement. So give me, you know, I'm worried about the spiel that you go in terms of recruitment. Would you paint the terrible picture, or, you know, is it that natural competition between 2 department stores or 2 sellers of potato chips to say my product is better than yours and you should not? How are these? What is the tone that recruitment sets? Because I think that's very important. Because you say you want to collaborate, you say we're a partnership, you say we're about the same thing, and I think it's equally important if you have 2 entities. You know, if I'm a Baptist and Dr. Hernandez is a Methodist, we shouldn't paint each other as foes as much as collaborating. So I think in an effort to reach that number, I don't want our communities to be victimized by approaches. And that's the personal, it may have nothing to do with the charter authorizing panel's ability to be able to determine, but at the same time, when you look at neighborhoods and how sensitive and how volatile and how vulnerable communities are, I think is very, very important, because as much as your history reflects success, then what if it's failure? And then, or not reaching the plateaus that you set for yourself, then you have to come back to a community that schools have been painted as less than desirable.
Well, again, as the national head of schools, you'll see a lot of me as well. Unfortunately, I won't be moving here, but you'll see a lot of me living out of hotels. I'm newly married, but my wife, we have kids back in D.C. But what we want to say that it's a mindset. I'm not just, and we're not just researchers, we're practitioners. And what we've identified is that most, if not all people who are living at a particular socioeconomic level want to be at that level. So you go out, you have real conversations. You sit down in people's homes and you look in their eyes and you come up with strategies and plans. And you tell them and you share with them best practices. I love to collaborate. I was in the traditional public school system and we were willing to say, no, let's look at best practices. That's something that we want to do with the Little Rock School District, the charter school, other charter schools, with parents, with the school board, with politicians, with universities. We have to identify how we're going to get those people, the people, our babies, who are currently living in a particular environment. Nobody wants to be there. We have to identify the strategies that we're going to implement to get them to a place where they can not just survive, but thrive. So when we walk the streets, and that's what we do, we knock on doors. We've been in the toughest of neighborhoods. A part of our team has already started to get these signatures. We know where we are. I was raised in those communities. We were raised in those communities. We're not afraid to go in and have real conversations. People respect when you come to their homes and sit and look at them in the eyes and sit down in their living rooms or sit on the porch and talk about their children. This is, I mean, this is serious right now, so we can talk and be real about it. The hardest of the hard dudes on the corner want to see their little brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews do better than what they did. They're going to give you a pass when you sit there and tell them you don't want to see your siblings, your offspring die early. They say, we want to find a way out as well. I've had thousands of those conversations. We've had thousands of those conversations. So when you come in and you talk about best practices for educating our children so that they can contribute to their communities, so their communities are not steeped in drugs, violence, crime, robbery, theft, burglary, we have to give them opportunities to improve their communities. And we have to make sure we don't forget the parents when we get the children inside the building, because you can't send the children back home to that same environment. So that's why our doors stay open. We bring the parents in, we show them resources. Remember, we worked in communities where the parents have never been out of the city, much less some have never gone out of the neighborhood. They go shop at the regular corner grocery store and get those items that are there or the little carry out. But we're trying to show them that there are opportunities out here that they may not have been taught when they were in school. They may not love education because they were not educated well. That's our mindset when we walk into your neighborhood. When we come in, we become partners. We say, look at the world that's out there. See, again, I'm a realist. We're realists. There's a $1.65 trillion economy out here, and we're all fighting over the same few crumbs. So they do not print money as more children are born day to day. They don't print new money because you have more children the next day. We have to now divide that, and we have to teach our children and our families how to now be a part of that community. We have no arguments with a local school district, the Little Rock School District. We have to collaborate because guess what? People are dying, people are being incarcerated, and we don't want to make money off the backs of our people in incarcerated systems. We want to put them in jobs. There are many jobs out here that are left vacant because children have not been educated to the point where they can now take over those jobs. So now let's expose our children early and often to the people who run the different companies. Let's give them opportunities through exposure. Let's educate our parents to have the types of conversations around the breakfast and dinner tables that we in here in this room have with our own children, so that they can now go on to college and have those jobs. So when we walk in the streets and knock on the doors, guess what? The people come out. We've already begun doing it. We can't say we're doing it in trying to get the kids there, but we ask, what do you need? We rode the neighborhood, get out of the cars, and people come out and stand outside and talk to us because they say, oh, you coming? Guess what? If that's how the way you think, you're welcome into our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Ford?
Yeah, I think Mr. Ford wants to respond.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to respond. I think your question that I want to make sure I catch the heart of the question was, will you do negative advertisement? And maybe he can come back and answer that. But the answer for the Little Rock School District is that since I've arrived, and I hope this has played out over and over, is that what we try to do is accentuate and share what we do, what we bring to the table. We don't go try to badmouth another entity, a charter or a private school. We try to share, here's what we do. And so I hope that would be our calling card. Tied into that, I think that he's right, that you've got to reach into these communities. And maybe many of you remember the community walks that I personally have done in the Stevens neighborhood with the principal, with Mr. Carlock. And so I think that is a critical component. And it ties into then trying to make your schoolhouse one that serves kids really not just in a, whatever you want to call it, 8 to 4, but really an extended time. And I just want to point out that the Stevens Elementary School has a community center right next to it, right there, that operates at that site. And so, that building doesn't close down as during the evening hours as well to serve the families. So there are things, again, that are happening right there at Stevens. And I think that kind of goes back into the recruiting end of what you're asking, finish off on this question, is that, the sequence of timing of things is that, I think that's why initially things were set up, and Ms. Newton, you may be more aware than anyone else of when the rules were passed of timing for approval. And it was a little bit based, I think, probably on that fact of, how do you go out and address your communities to engage them in a thoughtful way, that it doesn't end up creating a haphazard and it doesn't end up being rushed and not thoughtful. So I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Owa?
Yes. My first question is focused on your 160 count enrollment projections for this first year. Of that, will you please share your enrollment projections per grade level? How many are you, what would be your cap for kindergarten, what would be your cap for first grade?
Okay, our cap is going to be 60 per grade level, 60K. Hey, I'm sorry, 160 is in my head. It'll be 80 per grade level in the first year. Be 4 classrooms per grade.
You said 4 classrooms per grade?
4 classrooms per grade.
Okay. So in your floor plan, I note that there are only 3 per grade. So I'm sure that, and I know that plans change, and so I guess my question would, well, how would you accommodate for any fluctuation based on your current floor plan that you've submitted?
Sure.
And then how would you also accommodate for teacher and instructional aid distribution, considering the fluctuation of enrollment?
Okay. Well, the current capacity of the school is 20 classrooms. Our plan is in year 1 to year 2, taking us up